So I'm currently level 70 right now, and I want to go over a couple of critical mistakes that you could be making or could make in season 1. Now, of course, if you just want to sit back, enjoy the game, have fun, don't care about speedrunning, don't care about this, that, the other thing, just do it. Have some fun, no worries. But if you are looking to kind of maybe level up your game or potentially, not have some annoying experiences potentially happen, well, hopefully these couple of tips will help you do that to avoid some of these big mistakes. Now, the first mistake you could be making has to do with the new seasonal content, the heart system. This is the big new thing for season 1. And it's something that you don't want to ignore throughout any part of the game, even as early as the early levels, assuming you're not racing towards higher levels, which there are some advantages to that. But if you don't care particularly about leveling up extremely quickly, these are going to be really nice bonuses for armor, but also for the effects. And a lot of the effects can actually be earned early on into the game and can give you some massive bonuses. Now, some of these effects, like the one that I have here, is going to be locked to world tier 3, and some of them are even locked to world tier 4. So the faster you get to those modes, even better. But a lot of these can just give you armor straight up, similar to how skulls work, except typically this will actually give you more armor than a skull would at that point in time. You don't want to ignore this at level 1, you don't want to ignore this at level 50, and you don't want to ignore this at level 70 or 100. Early on, you'll find these naturally throughout the world, after you do your season 1 quest from the start of the game, which is going to be very useful to do. Then you'll be able to go ahead and see these tunnels around the map, and you're going to start finding crazy amounts of hearts in dungeons, and you'll just get them. Just slot them in. You'll go ahead and get some extra power, and it'll help you out in the long run. However, it is important to note that these are not recurable. And this is a mistake that I made early on, which is that I put a heart into a piece of jewelry that, well, I basically wanted to replace that jewelry immediately after. And this tends to happen early on in the game when you're finding these new rings, new amulets all the time. If you find a heart that you really like, and you don't want to specifically target farm that one to try to get it back, then maybe save it for when you actually do get an upgrade that you think you're going to be having for quite some time. Because once they're inside a piece of gear, they can be overridden, but they cannot be removed, which is very important. On that note, you also don't necessarily want to use these invokers, which are the consumables, if you're looking to target farm specific hearts, because as you level up, you're going to get more valuable ones, and once you reach world tier 4, you'll actually be able to target farm basically all of the ones within world tier 4, and they'll be higher value. And keep in mind, they are separated by type. So we have the brutal, devious, and vicious, and each one of these is going to be able to go ahead and give you a select option of them that are available. So I would wait for world tier 3 or world tier 4 before using these, although you do get quite a few of them, so it's not that big of a deal for you to use them early. But just keep in mind that if you are interested in a specific heart, do not place it into a piece of gear that you think you're going to replace very soon. Another thing I've noticed as I've reached level 70, almost 71 here, is that because of the survivability and damage nerfs, one thing's really crucial, and that is, even though survivability was important last season, it's even more so now, because I need to survive longer. I don't have as many healing options, and of course, because I need to survive longer since my damage is lower, well, I'm going to be running through my potions, so I need either mitigation or some ability to heal, okay? And that comes into my point here, which is you really don't want to focus on damage. You want to focus on defense, even in the early game, particularly when you are going through and accessing your paragon. So right when you reach level 50, you should basically just be all in on defense, except for obviously crucial parts of your build that give you massive damage increases. And I'll show you here. For example, here at my glyph, this one, guess what? 10% damage reduction when I'm wielding a melee weapon. Look at this glyph. I get 10% reduced physical damage from vulnerable enemies, which I basically have permanent vulnerable. This glyph here, 10% damage reduction from close enemies. So I am working on developing all three of these. And in fact, I can even go ahead and activate this one right now. in order for me to get all those damage reduction effects. Obviously, you're not going to be able to unlock all the glyphs and all the nodes and all that stuff on your Paragon board, or even be able to get all the stats on your gear. You might notice here on my gear, I'm really trying to prioritize damage reduction anytime I can get it, because it's going to help me out significantly more than damage will. The exception would be things like the Deadly Ambush legendary node here, which I'll be going over the full build in just a bit, probably later today actually. So stay tuned for that video and sub if you haven't already. But the Deadly Ambush node here is 23% increased critical strike damage to enemies affected by trap skills. This is a massive crit strike damage increase, and picking that up is going to be super useful. But overall, focusing damage is going to give you way more value, especially since the nerfs. One thing you also might notice as you kind of begin your journey throughout season 1 is that materials are actually pretty hard to come by, especially trying to go ahead and extract imprint aspects across the board, or doing whatever it is you wish to do. And in fact, I barely have enough resources to actually imprint and extract all my aspects on my gear currently. And I'm also looking for a lot of the plants. This is partly due to us skipping campaign and not having as much time generating those resources. And so a few tips here in order for you to get the most value possible. In the early game, you're going to want to salvage everything. Why is this? Because as you scale later on in the game, the sell costs go up and you're going to make more money. As you reach that mid to late game, what you'll want to do is break it up, because gold will start to become a very scarce resource as you start to enchant and as you start to extract an imprint. And so you need both gold, but you also still need your crafting materials, because you won't have enough crafting materials typically for you to enchant, extract, imprint, and all this other stuff. So you need to balance the two. And what I found to be the best method to do so is to sell your rares, but salvage your legendaries, and of course keep the ones that you want to keep for the aspects, right? The reason we do this is because a lot of the time the bottlenecks are going to be those rare materials, such as coiling wards, abstruse sigils, or potentially something like your baleful fragments. As you can see, it's salvaged from legendary weapons, and it's used to improve legendary weapons. I only have 3 right now, which basically means I cannot enchant or imprint aspects onto my weapons right now. So I just have to make do with what I got, because I have no additional generation of these materials. And this is mainly due because I was actually just selling everything at a certain point, and that was a mistake. I really should have continued to salvage even into the level 70s and 80s, because you're still going to need a lot of those resources. So again, break it up into selling rares and salvaging legendaries. This is going to give you a pretty good split in terms of being able to keep a lot of your resources high, as well as a lot of your gold high. Lastly, a very quick one here. Don't ignore gems, okay? I know that we cannot slot skulls into our jewelry anymore, but that does not mean gems are useless. Now, I personally only pick up emeralds and topaz because that's used for like 99% of the builds, and it's just annoying to pick up all the gems. But do pick up some gems for your weapons and your armor, because they're still going to be extremely useful. Don't just forget about them or ignore them because, well, there's a few problems, like your inventory's too small to fit the hearts, the gems, the legendaries that you want, your gear that you're picking up, and all that stuff. So be sure to at least keep a couple spots open for those gems, even though the hearts do take up so much inventory and stash space. I know, trust me, it is a little annoying, but we'll get there together. Thanks for watching, everyone. Let me know what you think about the season 1 in the comment section down below. And if you're interested in seeing how I have tackled the rogue in season 1, stay tuned for a video later today. I'll have a video talking about my build development so far. I am still working on the finalization of the build itself, and so you'll have that later on, and I'll be doing a full showcase in the next couple of days as I start to develop into the true end game of this game. See you for the next one.